And welcome back to another episode of the Be Successful series here on Get Your Entrepreneurship Together. My name is Brian Elam. I am going to be your host, and today I have a very special guest, a Mr. Kalvin Langenberg. Now, Kalvin has a very unique niche. He is all about helping men, more specifically, loves working with Christian men and helping them rehabilitate their joints, rehabilitate their bodies so they can go out there and dominate in life and on and off the court, as they say. So, Kalvin, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm really excited to talk with you today.
I'm excited too. It's nerve-wracking when you click that record button because it's like leaving a voicemail. It's like, okay, it started. What do I say? Okay, bye. Absolutely terrifying. It's like we were like, good conversation before this is simple. It's like, oh no, here we go. We're in the
Oh
game.
yeah. Yeah. The red light's on. Now it's real.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Don't say anything stupid.
So man, I've got to ask, obviously, going through your Instagram, which by the way, you've done a great job putting together. It's very well laid out, very professional looking. But one of the first things that strikes you as you go through that is obviously your faith plays a big part in who you are and what you do. So in your life, which came first? Was it Jesus or was it fitness?
Hmm. It's a good question. One of the questions I ask someone to qualify them, for my coaching, because I coach Christian guys, is, are you a Jesus follower? And it's really cool because not only do I get to qualify these people for my program, but I also get to hear their stories. And there's just a vast, variety of stories. And I've heard all these stories growing up because I grew up in a Christian home. And, it's one of those things where there's the stories, the Apostle Paul stories, you're walking on the road and all of a sudden this bright light and boom, like night and day, complete transformation. Or you hear about the druggie that was tripping on acid. And then, the next day he wakes up, he's not addicted anymore. And he's just giving his life to Christ. Right. Like that stuff is amazing. We gravitate to those things because they're really tangible and they're interesting. And we see God's work at a level that is unique and obvious. But for me, like, it wasn't like that. Like, I grew up in a Christian home and I always believed in Jesus, and there's this whole deconstructing movement that's kind of going on right now, and deconstructing your faith. And I think that that's really important for, Christians or whatever one you call yourself. I call myself a Jesus follower because even that word Christian nowadays just has such a weird, connotation to it. So anyways, I've always been a follower of Jesus my whole life. So again, it's not just this like amazing, immaculate revelation I had. But that's how grace works. Grace is sweet no matter how it's embraced. And so I think that, that's kind of hard. And I think it's really important. And I always try to emphasize that when I can talk about my faith, because it's not about my faith. It's not about what is your story of grace. It's like, well, I did this and I did that. It's like, that's not how grace works. Grace is undeserved. And so it's just something that, God has preordained and chosen and his sovereignty. And so the way that that looks tangibly is again, it's not some special prayer you say. It's not, special revelation, shooting out from heaven, aha moment. Sometimes it's just a gradual progression of, I guess, falling into a deeper appreciation of grace. So I would say that came first, between everything, because I used to be a really fat kid. And I was like pretty out of shape. So, I kind of like did this like weird turn of events. So I was like the really small, short, scrawny, skinny kid. And I had an older brother, and my parents, I don't want to say they were lazy, but they were probably more like efficient than anything else. Is they put us in, the same grade, same sports, everything. So, all the people that I played sports against or all my competition is just people that were, a year and a half older than me, a lot bigger than me. So I always felt like I was scrawny and small even then. And then compared to, people a little bit bigger than me, it's like, oh man, like I felt really small. So then, I got into like middle school, and then, we just had some crazy life things going on. And, McDonald's is $1 cheeseburger, And so, I mean, we were still pretty active, but I kind of blew up like a balloon. And then one night I was like, all right, let's just go for a run. I tried to get in shape a few times before. I played soccer before and would have like asthma attacks and like throw up. And I would always be the last kid, running on the track when our coach told us to run at the end or whatever. But yeah, one night I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to start running. And I didn't have a routine or anything. I didn't have like any background in fitness or whatever. My dad, he's fairly fit, but again, I just started eating salads. I was like, salads are probably better than, donuts and double cheeseburgers. So let's start eating those instead. And yeah, I would just run. I don't think I would run every night, but I would run consistently as long as I could. And I remember what I would do. I would go without stopping. I would just go as long as I could, even if it was like the smallest, lightest jog. I would go without stopping. I think the first time I went around our block like once and I almost like died. But then I just started running. And that kind of started everything. So those are the beginnings of, my faith story and my fitness story.
That is very cool. And I just wanted to resonate with you here for a little bit because as I was going through your profile, checking out your story, I too was a fat kid when I was growing up, and it lasted basically from early middle school all the way through high school. Got worse in college. I was eating a lot of fast food, a lot of junk, and blew up to almost 200 pounds. Which, if you see me now, you probably wouldn't think that that's even possible, but yes, it is. And my particular motivation was health because I was headed down the path towards diabetes, and I actually became hypoglycemic.
Mm.
And so I had to make the choice of it's either my health or it's this food that I love the taste of that's not good for me.
Mm.
So I decided that I wanted to live and not be a diabetic. So
Good
yeah,
choice.
it's all matter of motivation, and whatever that fire was that got you out of it, set you on the path. That's whether you want to call it God's intervention or just you tired of your situation. I just definitely resonate with
Mm.
the wanting better.
Yep.
And so let me ask you, for a guy that is looking to regain the vitality in his joints and better himself again, like we said, on and off the court, how does that process start with you?
So it starts with the person that I'm working with. So one of my biggest inspirations, his name is Charles Poliquin. And he is like the greatest, most decorated strength coach of all time. And one of the things that he said that he went over to Russia to look at their Olympic weightlifting team and see, oh man, like what is it that makes, like, why are they completely dominating the US team? Right. And he said the only difference, like, training program stuff the same, this and that, all the same. The only difference was their athlete selection. So they just chose people that were more predispositioned to succeed. They had better joint angles, just better overall athleticism, etc. And so I think that that's the starting point with being a successful coach, is making sure that you are picking the right people to be a part of your team. And so, I only work with highly competitive dudes that are like myself. Like I'm like hyper competitive, and I'm not a huge fan of like bodybuilding, powerlifting. That stuff is kind of fun, but I would rather go play basketball for a couple hours than sit in the gym for an hour. But either way, I mean, I love it all. I love competition. It's not that necessarily I love winning. I just hate losing. So I like just going out there and just, competing. So, what I would say is the starting point is you have to be someone that is going to succeed with a coach. That's actually like the first lesson with my program is it starts with you. Like there are aspects of yourself that you cannot control, like to some degree, your personality, your hair, your skin color. There's just things about you can't control, but there are things you can control, and that's your habits. And so your habits, there's multiple different actions and emotions that are stemmed from your habits. There's your thoughts, there's your attitudes, your values, your words, just different things that stem from your habits. And all those things make up your character. Now, the quality of your character is dependent on how close your actions, both seen and unseen, match up with morality. So that's called integrity. So for example, I only work with guys who are very high, who have very high integrity, because the reality is, if I'm going to give you a program of some sort, right? And you are a person of low moral character, and you're a lazy person, you don't get your work done, you're a slob, well then nothing I give you, even if I give you the most perfect joint program, your identity, your character is already at a point where it doesn't matter, right? So that's the starting point. And I think what's difficult for most people is they see the variables and the means as the thing that's going to benefit them as their outcome. And there is a lot of truth to that, right? There's a lot of truth. Like, consistency is important, but if you're consistently doing the wrong thing, you're probably not going to end up with a good result. So the variables are important, but that's not where it starts. Where it starts is with your integrity, where it starts is with your character and your habits and the way that you kind of interact with your actions and with your emotions. So that's how, when you say, like, what's the beginning process of helping someone rehabilitate their joints so that they can compete at a high level, it's like, well, you already have to be a certain type of person, for it to work. And so again, it's just a process of making sure that people are ready to become that. And the cool thing about it is you can become that overnight. It's a choice. It's a decision. Like, that was a decision I literally made. One night I stepped out of the van and said, I'm going to start running. I don't know where this is going to take me, but I'm just going to get in shape. It's literally, it can happen like that. It's a flip of the switch. So yeah, that's the starting point. And then, there's also variables and stuff that are important for that as well. But yeah, it starts with you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It definitely does start with you, the person. You said something that caught my ear earlier. You said something to the effect of your values are also a product of your habits. Now, go a little bit deeper on that, because that caught my brain as something like, I don't know how that can be.
Mm. So you have another way to state values is, you could say, beliefs or convictions, right? And there's a little bit more emotion and morality attached to those than your thoughts, right? Because your thoughts are just kind of cut and dry. Like, for example, I think flexibility is important, right? But your values are, flexibility is important because it helps me do this. Like, there's a why attached to it. So when I say that, that's attached to your habits are the starting point that kind of orchestrate all these different facets of, like, let's say, your values, right? Or your thoughts or your words, so the little things that you do here and there, they affect your values and the outworkings of your actions with your values. So I'm trying to think of an example, but let's say that, I'm habitually a person that is impatient. And so, therefore, let's say that my convictions, right? Like, let's say that my convictions are of some type of reality that would maybe believe that flexibility is important, right? So if I am a person and my habits are lazy, well, then it doesn't matter, because even if I believe that flexibility is important for a certain reason, then the outcome is still going to be negative, because my habits are, they don't match up with the morality and the standard that I want to hold for myself. So I would say that, everything starts with your habits and stems from your habits. And the outworking of those things is through your values, through your thoughts, through your words. But then, and all that stuff makes up your character. And the quality of your character, like I said, is the closer your morality is, both your seen actions and your unseen actions, that's your integrity. And so the closer those things are to, your morality, then the more quality the outcome is going to be. I
All
don't know if that
right.
answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Thank you. So in doing that, in putting those actions in place, yes, you're right. It definitely can change and transform not only your physical patterns as you're moving through time and space, but
Mm,
it can transform the mental stuff that's going on up here too, because now you see that, yes, it is possible. Yes, I
mm,
can do this, and I am doing it. So I am becoming what I said that I wanted.
mm,
That kind of alignment, it just has to be there for any kind of transformation. And I really respect the fact that you call that out right from the get go. And if they are not that person, or if they're not ready for that journey, then you won't take them on.
mm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
It's
that's
a, it's
very
it's a
smart.
weird paradox because, you know, you're a lazy person, so you sit on the couch all day and ignore your work. And you sit on the couch all day and ignore your work because you're a lazy person. You know, it's this kind of like intermixed reality of your habits that influence your values, but then your values, go back and influence your habits. But I would say that the starting point is your habits, because I would say that every for every action, there's an opposite reaction. So the first starting point of anything is movement. Like, you just need some general movement, taking imperfect action in a certain direction. And so I would say, like, if you change your little teeny tiny habits, like if you start walking slower, if you start eating slower, if you start driving slower, you're going to become a more patient person. And that's going to influence, the outcomes and the actions.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on next, is like some of the things that you can do, the little baby steps, because not just like, the whole like seeing the flash of light, or the drug addict gets lifted out of addiction automatically. Like, those things don't happen. I mean, they do, but for most people, they don't happen just like that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
process, it's a slow process. And I think, especially in this day and age with access to almost instant everything, we get caught up in that, and we think that applies to our own self, like our own mental and physical transformation. And it's not that way. So I like the whole thing about driving slower, walking slower can help increase patience. Is there anything that you found that can help someone increase their integrity, their willingness to do the right things when seen and unseen?
Mm-hmm. I think it stems from your basis of morality, right? Because no matter how hard someone tries to get away from like coherence of their thoughts and their actions, and maybe some people aren't like that, right? Maybe some people just don't give a rip if what they say doesn't match up with what they do. I've always been this type of way. Like, and it's good because there's a lot of accountability there. I was telling my wife this the other day. It was like, man, if I go on Instagram, right, and I post about our marriage being great and it's incredible or whatever, and then in the background, like, it's not, I feel horrible, you know? And some people, they can live with that. I cannot. And so, I don't know if that's a nature or a nurture thing. But I would say that it has to start with, just fundamental truth. And I think that, for me, the fundamental truth that I start with is, God has laid out specific standards of morality. Like, and I think that that's important. You have to have a specific standard of morality, which is why intellectually, to me, it's intellectually lazy, and it's also intellectually, like, not coherent to not believe in God. And I'm not saying that, the God of the Bible, like, that's what I believe. But if someone else believes that, it's not necessarily illogical. But I would just say that even not believing in the existence of God, like, it lacks coherence, because then you don't have any basis of morality. It's like, where does your integrity come from? You
Mm-hmm.
know, you can have integrity, but you probably, it's just not going to be coherent. So for me, I like coherence. And so for me, it's like, all right, where does my standard come from? Okay, cool, we have something tangible to grab onto of what moral code is, and God lays that out for us, and he's laid it on our hearts, but then, he's given us more tangible um ways of understanding it, through the 10 commandments and things like that.
Right. So when you're working with people, and you were gathering all of this knowledge that you have in order to help people now, these high achieving Christian men. Where did you pick up all this knowledge, or who were your, did you have any mentors?
Yeah. Yeah. So my biggest, I have a lot of inspirations. I like to pull from a lot of different people. I'm not a very like this is the way type person. Um, and so I find the really good things about some people, and then some of the people that you can learn something from anyone. But my biggest inspirations are probably Ben Patrick. He's known as the knees over toes guy. Um, he was kind of like the first person that kind of introduced me to this way of that training the joints was separate than training the muscles, and training connective tissue and this thing called biotensegrity is like the body is really connected. And I gravitated to that more so because I saw that from an experience, like from my own personal experience with working with people and training myself. I was never really into bodybuilding. I tried that and powerlifting, and the current biomechanics model works. Muscles and joint angles and those things work to create like a more mathematical equation for force production or things like that. But then when I would go into the real world, where you look at a basketball player and every single time he shoots, his knees go in and he creates this like weird triangle, and like even like something like gymnastics, like the energy transfer, or even the most basic component of human movement where we lay on our backs, that can't be answered through our current biomechanics model. Because if you were to see our current biomechanics model, which is just kind of like bones, muscles moving bones and things like that, it's too robust. There's different things and different components that we haven't really discovered or really gotten into, as far as kinetic energy, as far as even just the strength and the movement capacity of the joints and training those things. Ben Patrick was the first person that introduced me to that. And then I got into Lucas Aaron, who's known as range of strength guy. He was the first person that introduced me to kind of this balance of strength and flexibility, like what that actually means. Because I always thought that flexibility was you're a yogi, you're like this kind of hippie guy that's like really weak. And then I saw Lucas and he's doing the splits and his, quads are absolutely massive. But then I also appreciate just human movement and sports performance. And so, and then I started training sports, then that's a whole nother world of, oh, wow, like these biomechanics in sports don't work, because someone throws a ball over your head and you just have to react and that quick, and your body's got to move and bend in these different scenarios where it's like, oh, let's practice these landing drills, and you're like, that does not exist in the sport. So then guys like Austin Yoakum, who is kind of his model is like gamify the process, so the majority of his stuff is just exposing your body to a variety of different movements and teaching your body to just kind of come up with new things amidst the chaos. Like that's kind of his thing. So those three guys have probably been my biggest mentors, is Ben Patrick, Lucas Aaron, and then Austin Yoakum. Those three guys are absolutely massive.
Yeah, knees over toes guy. Yeah, I learned about him a few years ago from the guitar player in my band. He was going through some bad knee issues, and he found him and started implementing those exercises. And then of course he became an evangelist for the guys, like, you have to check this guy out, like my knees are getting better, that never felt this good, and oh my god. And so I value exercise and movement as well, so I checked him out and I started incorporating some of his stuff into what I do as well. And yeah, it definitely makes a big difference.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. And so I got some stuff here that I wrote down. I wanted to make sure I got around to. This is more for the entrepreneurial side. So if you guys were waiting for the entrepreneurship stuff, here we go. So you mentioned in your intake for the show that you're learning how to get the word out about your business.
Hmm.
What were you doing at the beginning of your business, and how has that evolved?
I would just say there's no intention, like when you like just post on social media. Okay, well, here's a video of me doing this. It's like there's no intentionality to it. And the intentionality comes from the proper information. So I hired a business coach. That's the biggest thing I tell people is like, well, Kalvin, how did you learn this much about, strength and flexibility? Well, Ben Patrick, he was my mentor. Lucas Aaron, he was my mentor. Hire someone that knows the things that you don't know. And so, yeah, I hired a business coach, and then, you walk through this door, and then on the other side is like this whole new world of marketing and, positioning yourself. And it's like, what the, I'm just a flexibility and strength guy, joint health guy. Like, I didn't understand any of this stuff. So yeah, I would just say just sheer intentionality backed with the new information I had. That's a massive game changer.
Again, I covered this in the last podcast that I recorded of basically hiring your weaknesses.
Mm,
So if you don't know something, hire the person that's been there before, that has the
mm,
experience. That way they can show you the path, show you what to avoid. I mean, that's the whole reason that my consultative life got started, is because
mm.
I built a business that flopped. And so I went and learned what I did wrong. And then I wanted to make sure I taught it to other people. That way they didn't make my mistakes and their businesses could actually succeed.
Mm,
So, yeah, that's just how it works. Another thing that you mentioned is that you're working on how to be a good business owner.
mm.
So, I was wondering what that means to you.
I think it starts with integrity. Again, making sure that the way that I go about my business is of high integrity. And what I mean by that is making sure that I'm very results driven. And it's not just, okay, let's just offer something just for the sake of offering it. Like, I actually want to provide real value, and I actually want to see real transformations. So making sure on the back end, that if I'm going to position myself as this joint pain specialist, making sure I am actually a joint pain specialist, learning everything I need to know about pain, about movement, and then making sure that I can create as much touch points as possible within my program, making sure I provide as much value to people so that when they walk away from my program, they get the result that they're looking for. So, when I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just maintaining integrity within my business, and without the whole process, throughout the whole process, like whether that's content, making sure that I'm not using certain verbiage that is almost like one of the things is Ben Patrick uses bulletproofing. Like, he says that word a lot,
Yes,
it's
he
kind of a
does.
buzzword. I don't like using that word just because it kind of, in a sense, violates my conscience a little bit, because it's like, you can't bulletproof, and don't get me wrong, it's probably a brilliant marketing tactic. It probably doesn't even matter like who gives a rip, but for me, it's just like, there's certain ways that I can market myself without having to do that. So it starts with the content, even starts with like the sales calls. Like, I'm not going to get on a sales call with someone and I'm not going to sell someone. I'm not a salesperson. I am a person who provides a transformation. And if you're a good fit for the transformation, I'm going to tell you about it. And if you want to come along, you want to join, let's go. I'll tell you the price. I'm not here to like, oh, I'm going to overcome your objection and kind of like do it like a really sneaky way and kind of use psychology to trick you into joining. It's like, no, that violates my integrity. So every aspect of my business, whether it's being the business side of it, whether it's selling, marketing, that aspect versus, the actual program and the offer, it has to be cohesive, and that's been difficult for me because I think sometimes, like, one of the biggest things was I really increased my prices, right? And before, my integrity was telling me, hey, just go super low prices, kind of give your stuff away, just kind of be like this humble, pricing and whatever. And it's like, well, in reality, if you want to actually help people, you actually need to charge what you're worth, because then you're just going to be so swamped that you're not going to be able to help anyone. And if I really want to help somebody, it's like, all right, well, let's charge way more, get like 5 or 6 or 20 people that are really interested in what I do. And then the rest of the time I have now, I can, offer as much free value as possible. I can create a free strength and flexibility program, put it out there, so you can provide so much more. Like, you can be more cohesive with your integrity when you could charge more. But again, it was just one of those limiting beliefs things. It's hard for me to just get past those limiting beliefs because I always have this filter of, okay, what is the morality behind this that I have to understand to make sure that I'm not violating my moral conscience, and I don't know if a lot of entrepreneurs like think like that, but that's something that's really, really like important to me. That's something I value a lot, is just making sure that those things are in check.
I really appreciate the fact that you said that and that you went down that road. I really do, because being connected to the business coaching space, the life coaching space like I am,
Mm,
there are a lot of people out there that are just doing the overcoming of objections and the
mm,
manipulation of people, the digging into pain to make them buy your product.
mm,
It's just it's awful. And
mm,
this conversation is going to help switch that narrative and switch that practice. It's already starting to shift. Like
mm.
the community of consumers are getting tired of it, you
Yes.
know, because although we want to be invited into something, we don't want to be sold into
Mm,
something or pushed into something. Like you said, you're not a sales guy.
mm,
You're there to have a consultation and figure out if they're the right person for the transformation you provide.
mm,
It's not a pressure game. And I totally resonate with that. So thank you for
mm,
going down that road. I appreciate it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing too that like I had to switch in my brain was, I don't know if you've read that book. Shoot, what's it called? It's a really small book. It's about sales or something like that. But anyways, it's about give, give, give. Just keep giving, keep giving, keep giving, right? Um, and I think it's sometimes for an entrepreneur, like there has to be a moment where the opposite of giving is not taking. Right. So I think sometimes we're like, okay, well, I just keep giving, I keep giving, I keep giving value. But when can I take? When can I? It's like, no, no, no. That's not what it's about. It's about learning how to receive.
Mm.
Receiving is the opposite of giving, not taking. So I think just giving, 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 giving as much value as possible, giving as much insight as possible with your offer and with all this stuff. And then it's not going to be a sale. You're just going to have to receive the acceptance of that the people are buying into what you provide. I think that's just it's so much more pure way of going about it. It's probably a lot slower of a process, but to me it's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. One of my earliest mentors said that it's the same effort to
Mm,
sell a $100 item to a person versus a $10,000 item to a person. It's the
mm,
same amount of effort. The messaging, the marketing, the sales call, it's all the same.
mm,
It's just whether you're positioning yourself to, like you were saying, have that better experience, not only for, your clients, but for yourself as the business owner, and giving you that breathing room to, again, put more of that free value out in the world.
mm, 100%.
And then you mentioned part of this journey, your entrepreneurship learning journey, that you're learning how to get leads from social media.
Mm,
Now, obviously, leads and sales are the lifeblood of any business.
mm.
So, what have you started to see that is working, and like what are you doing to get leads from the social media?
Yeah, I
Because
think one of the things that is really helpful is again, taking a not necessarily a passive approach, but a more receptive approach. What I mean by that is content is just to get people to raise their hands, right? So if you need a niche, right? If you're going to sell, what I sell, which is, more expensive uh, coaching. And so you need a niche, right? Because at the end of the day, if someone is asking you what you provide versus what somebody else provides, it's like, well, it's not much different. That's not acceptable. Your product or your service has to be so quality that you're like, oh yeah, why would I go buy the $50? I'm not going to go buy the $50 program because it's completely different than what you provide. You provide so much more value. That's why you cost so much more. Right. So I kind of forget where I was going with that, but back to the content is you're just getting people to like raise their hand, right? But you have to position your content in such a way that is speaking to the right person, right? You almost have to be repetitive and redundant with your messaging. So then you get people to raise their hand, right? And then from there, you sell them on a call, so you get into the DMs and it's all inbound, which is really nice because I don't do any like cold DMs. I don't do any, just, hey, my name is Kalvin, because it's just a new person, but someone who comes in, they show some interest. And so therefore they like you for some reason, right? They followed you, they liked your post. There's something about it that caught their attention, right? So you just reach out and just say, hey, how are you doing? Just, start a conversation. And then the goal of the conversation is to qualify and then to sell them on a call. So then you get them on the call, but before you get them on the call, you have a form. And there's a couple of ways to get them on the call. One of the things that I found that is practically really helpful is creating a really high quality freebie, and before you send the freebie, have a form that at the end of the form, like one of the questions, 10 question qualifying form, it says, would you be willing to get on a quick call to learn about my full custom coaching program? If they say yes, you reach back out to them and say, hey, I noticed, et cetera, you said that you'd be willing to. So because now it's their idea, you're not selling them like, hey, you want to get on a call? They're like, yeah, but why do I want to get on a call? It was their idea in the first place. So then you send them the Calendly link and they're like, oh yeah, cool. Let's, click on a time. So then you get on the call with them. And then from there, before you get on the call, they answer some questions that just completely further fully qualify them. This is the pricing that you can expect. This is the type of person I'm looking for. Again, you don't want to make it super complicated. No one's going to fill this out. 10 yes or no questions that kind of qualify people. And then they know what they're getting into when they get on the call. I know the type of person that's getting on the call. So then on the call, it's just a matter of filling in the gaps of the information, seeing if this person is a type of person I want to work with, seeing if what I offer is a good fit for them, and then just seeing if it works, So it's a very, like I said, it's not a passive approach, but it's a very simple approach. It's not a complex funnel. It's not, one of the things my coach always says is simplicity scales, complexity fails. So creating as much simplicity in the process as possible so that, again, for people who are in the service-based industry, it's really hard to think like a business owner, so that in the future, you can start to take yourself out of those positions, right? If you have these super complex funnels of getting leads and things like that, then it's going to be really hard to delegate those things, right? So, in the future, it's like, hey, look, this is how we generate leads. Write this person down on the lead tracker. You follow up this time, et cetera, get them on the call. Once they're on the call, this is kind of how we, position the offer. If they jump on, they buy, great. That's so much easier than being like, all right, we're going to do a webinar and then we're going to get them on the call. And then we got to follow up after that. It's like, no, just qualify and that's it,
Yep. Educate, connect, qualify, and then connect one-on-one for real to see if they're a fit.
Yep.
That's right. It doesn't have to be much harder than that, folks. Yeah. One of the things that, the questions that come up so much inside the coaching space is, do I need a website? Like, do I need a funnel? Like, do I need to run ads? Whatever, all this stuff. And, I'll see those conversations get started and I just can't help myself to chime in. It's like, you do not need a website. Like,
Yep.
what you need is to start putting stuff out on social and connect with people that show interest and just go from there.
Exactly. It's that simple. It really is.
But we think that this whole business thing, like, it's so complex, and you hear about marketing and advertising and lead magnets and all of this stuff, and it just clogs the brain with busy work, really, and distracts from the mission of getting yourself out there so you can help people.
Exactly. And you learn so much along the way. That's what it's all about. Like you said, if there's no movement, then nothing happens. You're just stuck there. And like you said, people get just stuck on, okay, I'm going to spend this money on this website. Then they get the website and there's just crickets. It's like, well, you didn't do any work. Like there was no movement,
Right. You just built something in the background. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't put anything out, you just built something. It's like that. It's so funny. Like that's one of the big mistakes that I made with my first business is I built this killer website with all this automation in it, and it was crickets, just like you
Mm,
said. It's like I built it and nobody showed up.
mm. And I will
uh,
say this too, like, so for me, like someone who's like really values integrity, right? It's so hard when you fail, right? Because you're like, you not only failed yourself, you feel like you failed the other person. Like I'm thinking back to all the other times and the clients I've had in the past that I have failed. They've paid me money and I have failed them. You know, that is so hard for me to live with. That has probably been the biggest thing that I've had to overcome, right? But I will say then it's not failing unless you don't learn anything from it, right? So I can say that in my brain, like, oh, I failed them, but it's like, okay, well, what did I learn from that? Cool. Next time that happened, it didn't happen again, right? I didn't fail with that person. So you have to just be willing to take imperfect action, fail over and over again, and not just, I don't want to say, oh yeah, just be okay with failure, just sell these people all these programs and it's just complete trash. But okay, we failed. How can we make this better next time? Fix it next time. And then if you do that over the course of, 7, 10, 15 years, you're going to have something of super high value.
Absolutely. And just like we were talking about earlier about the access, the speed of information and all of this, just like it takes time to transform your mind and your body, it takes time to transform a business.
Mm,
You know, there's no such thing as an overnight success.
mm.
So just try, if you're thinking in that manner, I'm speaking to the audience, you, the first time entrepreneur, if you're thinking in that manner, do your best work to get that out of your head, because it's not serving you. It's not serving the people that you want to serve either.
Mm.
And speaking of connecting with people and going on a broader scale, you also mentioned that you want to eventually take this outward farther and help the world. So what does that look like? Because that's a big mission.
I have no idea. I'm
Oh,
just I'm just hyper ambitious, like I'm like focused about like out to at the 2 years, I'm like, all right, very specific. But then I'm like a what you call visionary. And I think that again, that's really hard for entrepreneurs because most entrepreneurs are visionaries. So you have to almost restrict yourself from being too visionary because then you get sidetracked. You'd be like, oh, let's try this, let's try that, squirrel. It's like, no, no, no. It's like stay focused. It's what you're doing. But like you still have to have that carrot that you're dangling out in front of you. I love that. Like I love the chase. It's not about getting the carrot. I don't really give a rip if I get the carrot or not. As long as I have it out in front of me though, like it's something to chase. So I think if you can compartmentalize that almost to the degree that, okay, I'm chasing something and it's about the chase, but I still have like these big ambitions, but I can still focus and grind out just the day-to-day boring work. All right, like let's try to compartmentalize that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, speaking about like compartmentalizing and just the whole daily grind of it all, are you utilizing any kind of tools, anything with AI or automation, anything like that to help you in that respect so that things go quicker, smoother, anything like that?
Not right now. I think that, oh man, that would be so nice eventually. Um, I'm learning so much though. And that's probably another one of my downfalls. It's probably a mixture of pride. And I'm sure that that's something like I can envision that being a problem in the future, like taking myself out of the business in some senses because I just enjoy learning. I enjoy, but I know that there's going to be a time where to get to that next level, you have to delegate and you have to. But right now I'm learning about sales. I'm learning about marketing. I'm learning about how to make content. I learned how to edit videos. It's just different things. So right now it's just a one-man show, putting in lots of hours. And it is really tiring sometimes. Like, last night, just like 10 o'clock at night, and you're like, kind of feel like you're done with everything. And you're like, nope, I have to prepare my post for tomorrow morning. So, you just sit down, you just grind it out, and I know that I could probably pay someone to do that. But at this point in time, like, it's just work, you know? And so
Hmm.
maybe that can be an encouragement for anyone listening that just like wants to jump the gun in outsourcing, and it's like, I don't know. I would hold off on that as long as you can and just keep grinding.
It makes sense, because if you outsource, if you delegate something too quickly, you don't really have a handle on how it works,
Mm-hmm.
what it really takes to make that process successful, or at least somewhat successful enough to where somebody else could take it and run with it and build it more. But I think it was Gary V that said, know enough of each facet of your business to be dangerous,
Mm.
and then focus on your strengths and delegate or hire out those weaknesses. But it is definitely very important to have that working knowledge of those aspects. I agree with you there.
Yeah. Maybe here's a question for you. There seems to be this notion of almost toxic positivity. And when I say that, like, it's very much so about financial growth, like as an entrepreneur. Like, it's all about, okay, once you get to this level, how do you get to the next level? Once you're at that level, well, how do you get to the next level? We don't want to grow complacent. That's not anything that an entrepreneur should have in his verbiage. But where do you struggle with that? Like, being the difference between being content and being complacent with where you're at as an entrepreneur.
That's a very good question. And you're right, that is definitely out there in the lexicon right now. So, what I would say is number one, you have to determine what's right for you. The word success, it's not a measuring pole on a wall somewhere.
Mm,
It means different things to different people. And when you see all this messaging out there about how to go from, 5 to 6 figures, how to get from 6 to 7 figures in revenue, to me, a lot of that messaging that's out there is just meant to sell somebody on
mm,
another course or another program.
mm,
It's playing on the shiny object, or that carrot that's hanging out there, that golden carrot. It's
mm,
playing into that, making us think, oh, we can have it. Like, I can get to that next level. I can be, bringing in $100 million a year from my business.
mm,
It's possible. Well,
mm,
yeah, it is possible. But do you know what it actually takes to get there? Do
mm,
you even want to put in that kind of work, and
mm,
or hire the team that it takes to put that in place? Do you want to be the head of an organization like that? Because that's what you're looking at.
mm,
So yeah, this whole positivity thing about getting to that next monetary level, I think it's mostly just marketing BS.
mm,
And you really have to check in with yourself about what life are you trying to live and why.
mm. That massive. Spot on. That helps a lot.
Huh? That was fun. Got any more questions?
No, that's good. I like that. I like that. I didn't know. I mean, that's just one that's been running through my brain that I'm like, man, am I the only one that is like, I don't have to make $100 million? Would it help? Probably, but like, there's more things that you can give than your finances. I think that, there's some Christians that I follow that they're becoming more and more like, finances aren't bad, money isn't the root of all evil, the love of money is the root of all evil, and we can bless people with all this money. It's like, you can bless people with other things though too. You can bless people with your time, you can bless people with your energy, right? So if you're using your time and your energy other places, then you're depriving possibly your family or people that are important of that time and energy just to give them things. And so yes, you can bless people with money, and I think it's absolutely amazing. Money is not evil. But again, I think that we get our priority shifted because of, I don't know, maybe pride and just wanting more versus being intentional with what we want. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Yes, I like that. And I think that you're right about, we have the wrong focus when it comes to the idea or concept of wanting more or having more, because that's like an innate thing within us as humans. You know, we're
Mm,
curious, we want to learn more, we want to do more, we want to be more, you know, for ourselves, our family, our community, whoever. But within this particular American entrepreneurship world, even the consumerist world,
mm,
the idea of more, our brains just point right to money.
mm,
And you know,
mm,
money can fix money problems, but money can't fix all problems.
mm,
Just like what you were saying with giving your time, your attention,
mm,
your knowledge,
mm.
you know. So yeah, it's just, again, it goes back to this whole thing of what do you want to do this for and why? And that's one of the biggest, it's truly one of the biggest questions that anybody that comes to me and wants any kind of coaching with their business is like, I ask them, it's like, what do you want to do this for and
Mm.
why? And think hard, because it's not a surface question.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Kalvin, I can't believe it's been almost an hour here already. It's gone by like that. It's been a
I know. I was
blast
thinking, I
having
was
you
like, I think we're
here.
about to hit an hour. So how
Yeah,
how
yeah, we
how long should
totally
we
are. It
go?
happened so quick. But let us know, where can people find you to connect with you if there are some Christian men who are very driven, who want to get themselves better? Where can they find you to learn more?
Instagram's the best way. So long haul coaching, and I'm the guy with the horse with the Nebraska shirt and hat. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. Again, Kalvin with a K, Kalvin. And then you can figure out my last name. Good luck. Langenberg.
Well, now that I know you're on LinkedIn, I'll go find it and I'll just link that directly in the show notes. That way it's not so tough for people. I can just choose. You want to go on Instagram, LinkedIn, both, whatever. So, Kalvin, thank you so much for your time, my man. This has been an absolute pleasure. Any other thoughts you want to leave us with before we part ways today?
That's it, man. Loved it.
All right. Very cool. I'm glad to hear it. Well, there you go, folks. Links are in the show notes below. Go follow Kalvin. His Instagram is very well put together. It's a lot of fun. He's got a good sense of humor and he's a good dude. So go follow him and hit him up if you are his client. Take care, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.